What's up, folks? I'm the referee, Connor McCloskey, and here we talk 5e adventure reviews and 5e adventure design, and today we are looking at Hell or High Water by Rough Gem Games. And this adventure is free at RPG Trader, so if you want to grab it, be sure to check it out at the link below. This adventure is designed for level 4 characters. It has about 15 adventuring locations over 62 pages, and it's mainly written for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, but also 5e. A little fishing village on the island of De Malay has gone dark. Exports to the mainland have stopped. Small vessels have set out for the island, have returned as blood-stained splinters, their occupants missing. A larger and more official force was slowly being assembled to travel to De Malay, but last night, the island's lighthouse signal light briefly flared to life and delivered a message. Send help, stop church killing us, stop pact with the... With this, your group has agreed the Islanders don't have time to wait for the official force. You've arranged transport across the channel with Captain Bernard Beaumont, the new captain of the Pride of the Heart, and are determined to put a stop to whatever has happened on De Malay. So I really like a lot of things that are happening in this adventure. The feel of the adventure itself is great. It's devil-driven, an invasion of devils, and it has a very diabolic feel throughout. The ongoing issue is unique. The devils have stolen a chunk of the plane that was basically keeping this fishing village alive and are now using it as a potential entry point into the world. There's no read aloud text, and I think that's fine. I don't think read aloud text is a requirement, and there's plenty to go off here, but the main thing is that this adventure is a railroad. There's a few little tweaks here and there for how things might play out that don't affect much other than additional waves of combat potentially or avoiding them. And there's one big decision at the end that lets you fork toward one of two endings. But overall, this is basically a movie that your players will get to play through, and it makes sure that that's going to happen along the way. So the adventure is supposed to be 3 sessions. And that is 3 sessions where the Dungeon Master is going to know every single thing that's going to happen, and you will just make stops along the way in order. The layout itself is pretty good. It keeps the information well organized. Everything feels easy to grab where you need it. The encounters themselves are well done, and the support for how to set up the encounters and get them going is very useful, but it's also a product of how rigid the adventure is that they can tell you exactly how it needs to be set up. The locations are cool, eerie, they feel dangerous, and the maps communicate it well. And having the stat blocks for the monsters right next to the encounter they're occurring in over and over again, even though they're duplicated, is actually super useful. The monsters themselves are very cool. They have a token right on the page that you can grab and use. They seem simple and easy enough to run. They also have tactics built into them to make running them even easier. So here's one of my favorite examples, the Church Director, who is basically a sort of sub-boss who's running the devil incursion on the island itself in the church. So we've just got some attacks: Fiendish Claw, Hellfire Bolt, Call Forth, where the Church Director strikes a nearby bell with a bolt of foul energy. A Church Associate, which is one of the subordinates, is summoned through a nearby door and rolls initiative. And then they just have one spell, Blindness, Deafness. That's their thing. That's what they do, right? You don't need a whole list of spells. And then tactics: the Church Director should attempt to avoid melee and should target the weakest characters while using Call Forth each round and casting as often as possible. Foregoing a more intensive transformation to better lead their flock, the Church Director directs the actions of the worshippers with pride. So that's great. Easy to use. Sub-boss has some little ones that come in with him, has a function, has tactics built out for you, could run that no problem, and that's how the encounters feel. The dungeons themselves are either self-contained one-room encounters, or there is a dungeon, but it's just a straight line, other than the town, which feels like it's going to open up a little bit more and let the characters explore, but in reality it is basically just one zoomed out room. Like on page 23, there's this entire page dedicated to this church member in the middle of town that is slowly being transformed into this devilish entity, which is cool, but it just goes on and on about all the different ways that this encounter might go and what the party might do and how it should respond, and it's just way too much. It's not quick, it's not atmospheric, other than the idea, which is cool. It's not punchy, it's not runnable at the table as it is, just needs to be really tightened up. And that sort of goes for in the fishing dungeon itself as well. There just needs to be a better economy of words. There are blocks of text describing some of the rooms that seem like stream of consciousness, or in other rooms they don't actually describe the room, they just describe what's going to happen next in the room. They just start setting up what's happening without any sort of atmosphere or description. The NPCs are pretty good. They have fun personalities. They have a list of their goals, so they'd be easy to use, easy to run, maybe throw a wrench in things occasionally. There's also no treasure, or from what I can tell, magic items of any kind at any point. And it actually says at the beginning, presence of loot after most encounters is not specified. If your players are struggling and didn't bring enough supplies, then after most encounters there should be an opportunity to find some of what they are short on. You could have them find arrows, healing potions, or even scrolls if you're feeling generous. But like, they're running what turns out to be a suicide mission against an incursion from hell against a bunch of devils. Now's the time to ham it up with the loot, right? Throw some magic items at them, especially if the railroad is going to point them toward not coming back from the portal to hell. There's also a lot of rolls called for with what seem like arbitrary DCs. It's like the DCs are sort of used to describe the environment, but they're all over the place. You have a DC 13 for this and 17 for that, and it's like it's describing how hard it is, but you could just use description to describe it and then just make the difficulty easier for the GM to keep track of. There's also multiple points where we have perception checks or religion checks to share information that really just needs to be known by the players and should just be shared so that they have the context they need to move forward. There's also a puzzle blocking advancement through the adventure, and I think it's way too hard and is likely to be very frustrating at the table. But I also really like the puzzle. There's 3 different minor puzzles within the puzzle, and each one has many solutions, but you have to find the solution that works for all 3 puzzles within the greater puzzle. So you have 100 beads and you need to split them up the right way, and each one has a different amount of beads and a different puzzle that tells you how many beads you need to put in. Honestly, I thought the puzzle is super fun, and outside of an adventure or even as an offshoot, as an extra room or a treasure vault or something like that, I think it'd be awesome. But it's just too hard for the front door of the church you have to go into to fight the devils, blocking the entire adventure behind it. So really love the puzzle itself. I just think it's too hard, too frustrating, and it's right in the way. Also, there's a lot of really good writing in this adventure that I think is super atmospheric and I really like. Like, for example, the deep dark pools. As the players walk into this chamber, they encounter an unexpectedly peaceful atmosphere. The room is lit only with a soft glow coming from beneath the waters of a still pool, and the only sound is the echoed drip of water from the ceiling and the player's footsteps. Cave system extends much deeper than the surface level map shows. The pools that line the narrow walkway through this room are the points of entry to a larger network full of deep, dark merfolk that have also been sadly corrupted. That's great. Love that. Eerie, brief, and then the next paragraph tells you how to have the merfolk engage. But overall, I really like this adventure. I think it's overall pretty fun. I don't think it would be a nightmare to run, but I would have to pretty much blow it apart and then stitch it back together to make there be any chance of exploration or the choices of the characters being meaningful. And it suffers greatly from that classic Pathfinder adventure path feel of wanting to be a movie and wanting things to play out in a certain way. And it will force things to get there and drag the players along through all the sessions of it. I'm going to give this 6 stars, which is I might run this with quite a bit of rework. I honestly think it's a great effort that just needs refinement in the overall structure, some of the layout, some of the economy of words, but a lot of the elements here are really fantastic. And as I said, it's free, so it's really worth grabbing just for the overall structure, the maps, and the monsters. So I definitely recommend you go check it out. So please remember to like and subscribe if you find this useful. And if you have any recommendations for third-party adventures I ought to check out, put them in a comment. And if you'd like to badmouth any of my adventures for a change, check out some of the free ones I have on my RPG Trader page linked below. Next time we'll be looking at The Corruption of Alder Glen by the phenomenal Ginny D. So until then, I've been your referee, Connor McCloskey, and that's today's game. Thanks, guys.